I had high hopes for the Dragon Age Veilguard reveal trailer, not because I was expecting anything good, but I thought it was going to be so unbelievably bad and embarrassing that it might be peak comedy, that we might at least get some entertainment out of it. After the initial reveal with the ridiculous companions and their entrances, I was expecting the worst. I thought, Jesus, I knew Bioware were not in a good place, but have they truly hit rock bottom? Because that initial trailer was rock bottom. What we instead got in the 20-minute gameplay reveal, it absolutely was not good, but it failed in a different way to the initial reveal trailer. It wasn't really funny, entertaining in a bad way. It was just boring, it was just bland, it was mediocre. The 20 minutes of gameplay, I was expecting them to sort of jump around to different portions of the game, maybe a bit of story, maybe the character creator, maybe the middle of an actual story quest or something like that, a bit of gameplay, a bit of combat. Instead, it was just an on-rails initial section of the game, and it was very typical for your modern 2024 AAA affair, where you're just following an NPC around, there's a cutscene, you do a little bit of combat, cutscene, so on and so forth. They didn't really show off that much of how the game is actually going to play, sort of the gameplay loop, to be honest, but I was nearly falling asleep. It was 1 a.m. here where I was watching it, and I was struggling to stay awake. I ended up having to put it on a second monitor and sort of glance at it, try and pay attention. There was nothing redeeming about it. It didn't really have the exact tone of the initial trailer, but I definitely feel like as we meet more of the companions, that Marvelification will be in full effect, with the sarcasm, the quips, everything like that, where it's just samey, feels cartoony, and not at all like Dragon Age. I get the feeling that is coming. Some people are saying, and I think they're coping, oh no, that initial trailer, it was just a bad marketing effort. The real game, it looks and feels like Dragon Age. I don't think it does. If you watch that gameplay trailer, it felt more like a phone game or something that's been repurposed into Dragon Age. Doesn't look exactly like the reveal trailer, doesn't look like Dragon Age either. And as we see more of this game, I think we are going to see that initial trailer is what this game is actually going for. And if we look at the game overall, if we think about what it is, it's essentially just an action RPG. It's trying to bring in the mainstream. It's trying to pander to the people who don't really care about RPG elements, interesting tactical combat, making meaningful choices, great gameplay exploration. It's just trying to appeal to people who want to hack and slash their way through a easily digestible story with average writing, mediocre dialogue. And I guess the only other people who'll be interested is game journalists who'll be giving it extra points because a character's got a prosthetic leg. Oh my god, the diversity. They're ticking every gender, race box, every character, every companion is queer. That'll show these straight white males we don't need their money, or they probably do, because unless this game sells like 15, 20 million copies, I still think this is the end of Bioware. There is a sense I'm getting that people who watched the initial trailer, and they were absolutely disappointed, everyone was, even the biggest copers were struggling to find any positives in that initial reveal trailer. Those same people are trying to use the gameplay reveal almost as some sort of gotcha, almost like the initial reveal was a 1 out of 10. It was just so dismal, it was so awful. But then the gameplay reveal, that's a 5 out of 10. And these people are going, yes, I knew those negative, toxic gamers suggesting Dragon Age was going to be crap. Look at this. It's nowhere near as bad as we thought. Apparently, a 5 out of 10 means good things. But for Bioware, I think they really needed like a 9 out of 10, a 9.5 out of 10 to stay alive. I can't see this thing selling. The average fan, who probably didn't even watch the initial trailer, but they also don't really care about Dragon Age, they were only ever going to buy something like this if it looked fantastic. If it scratched that Baldur's Gate 3 itch and it had all that positive word of mouth. I don't see that happening with Dragon Age. And to try and prove that point a little bit, let's just have a look at the reactions. And if we look at the Steam forums, it's difficult to find much positivity. Dragon Age is a gritty, serious fantasy game, and you ruined it. The combat is more dumbed down than Inquisition's, LMAO. This game will be the end of Bioware, I tend to agree. Do not buy this game, the reason is clear. And then I saw this one, I thought maybe I'm wrong, maybe there are some people excited. Game looks great, someone says. Hopefully all romances are queer only. It's about time us queers got the spotlight. Aha, I see. I can now understand where the positive word of mouth is going. There's a trend here, because looking at Reddit, the Dragon Age Reddit, this is where you'll go if you want positive discussion about the game. But again, there's a bit of a pattern here, because the people excited for Veilguard, again, it's people who saw the initial trailer. It was so awful that literally anything slightly better was going to get these people going, hooray, Dragon Age is saved. But they're not actually talking about the game. They can't really defend the combat, for instance. It's just mediocre action combat. It looks bland. I still think, I'll get into this a bit later, but I just think it's a repurposed live service game, and that's about it. But not a lot about the game itself. What they're excited about, for instance, and we can see Eurogamer, the Dragon Age Reddit's excited because mainstream gaming outlet is shilling for EA. Who could have expected that? And it says, whisper it, but Dragon Age the Veilguard has me thinking the unthinkable. It looks like Bioware is back. They're pumped about this. But what are they really talking about? They're discussing a range of lighting options in the character creator. Just what I thought. I couldn't get any happier. We will get body sliders. Oh, yes, I'm crying. Hair, lots of hair. Is this real life? It's this sort of stuff. The average Redditor, Dragon Age fan, it seems, on here, they don't really care about the substance, deep RPG, interesting systems, CRPG elements. They couldn't care less about that. You just put a boob slider in, they're happy, they're excited, that's all they need to spend $70. They'll get sexually aroused by the character creator, that's more than enough for them, and there's much more of this. For instance, the most highly upvoted thread I could find was not really discussing the gameplay in detail. It was an article that reads, Dragon Age the Veilguard romance details revealed, including confirmation that all companions will be pansexual. Dragon Age is saved. Who needs interesting tactical combat like in Origins? Interesting choices. Every character's queer. That's all we need. It's kind of interesting to me because if you think of Baldur's Gate 3, it had this stuff as well. There's no really getting around that. Baldur's Gate 3 was a diverse game. The difference is, though, a lot of people who liked Baldur's Gate 3, they couldn't give a shit about the diverse elements. That didn't add any points for them. It's not seen as, oh my god, the game's better because of all of this diversity. The difference is people like Baldur's Gate 3 because of the CRPG elements. With Dragon Age, it seems like they think, because every character's pansexual, the game's great. It means literally nothing. The game itself, it looks just dismal, bland, slop. It's something that would have passed in like 2017 when there were not that many mainstream RPGs going around. Aside from something like The Witcher 3, there wasn't much. Maybe they could have gotten away with the Veilguard. But now we've got much more. We've got Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 coming out at the end of the year. It's going to make this look absolutely embarrassing. Post Baldur's Gate 3 world, again, people want their CRPGs. They don't want this. Another one like this, someone makes a thread, is anyone else excited the characters in the Veilguard are so diverse? The fact that the Veilguard has a black companion and an Asian companion who are both elves and both look badass. I'm jumping for joy. When I saw the trailer and saw the Rook, that he was a black protagonist, Baldur is Asian, Davrin is black, it almost made me tear up. We can see the priorities from the positive side of this community. This is what they're talking about, not the game. The gameplay trailer itself, I think it started with a lot of likes, like 35,000 likes versus 5,000 dislikes. There's something like 50,000 dislikes now. There are more dislikes on the gameplay trailer than likes. It's not as if people just hated the initial reveal and they loved the gameplay. No, at best, it's divisive. And I don't think that's going to be good enough for Bioware. If we look at the gameplay now, it was revealed that this game will actually be mission-based. When I first saw it, I saw red flags, but then I saw people talking about that positively. So I'll explain the positive side first. People like the sound of mission-based because Bioware, they're not very good at open worlds, if we're being honest. They're much better at maybe hub worlds, even the missions in some of the Mass Effect games. That's been their strength. Not open worlds like Andromeda Inquisition, which were quite pathetic. They were full of MMO quests, that sort of stuff. But my issue here is I don't necessarily think mission-based means it's going to be exactly like Mass Effect 2, for instance, which I still think is probably too action-based. If Dragon Age is just turning into like an action-based Mass Effect type, how is that a good thing? Why are people positive about that? But I think it could be even worse. because Anthem was actually the game that Dragon Age Dreadwolf or Dragon Age the Veilguard was initially trying to emulate when it was in development. It was trying to be that live service, be Anthem with sword and sorcery. And then EA went, hang on a minute, Anthem's a total flop. Live services in general, they're not always doing that well. If you get a single player team to try and make a live service, you're not guaranteed to print cash. It usually goes wrong, like Redfall and many other examples. So I believe that the reason that this is mission-based is because it's a repurposed live service game. Anthem had missions like that. It had its hub world, and then you went off and did missions. That's what Dragon Age the Veilguard sounds like. I really think what we're getting is just the remnants of a live service title. It's going to have no cohesive vision, kind of like Gotham Knights. That's what Gotham Knights was. It was meant to be a live service. They tried to turn it into a single-player game. It didn't work. That game seemed to flop as well, and you can expect the same quality out of Veilguard. If we think about just the combat and the overall gameplay, looking at this screenshot of the game, it just feels like a mess. And in terms of tone, this zombie demon creature looks absolutely pathetic. It looks cartoonish. The demons in Dragon Age 1 and 2, they looked a whole lot better, like 15 years ago. Just feels like some sort of Fortnite spin-off. The UI, everything we've been shown looks like it was designed purely for consoles. Maybe the PC version will be a bit different. But even things like only having 3 abilities available at a time, and same for your companions as well. They've confirmed that you can use more abilities than just this 3. You can swap them, but you can only actually use 3 at once. And this tells me that for the most part, the default difficulty that they've spent the most time on, it's just going to be hack and slash. It's going to be basic. Your choices in combat are not going to really matter. They want to make sure everyone can just get through it without much thought. And I'm sure there'll be a higher difficulty mode where maybe some of these different abilities come into play. But what I find, a lot of these mainstream games, you turn up the difficulty, and all that really does is make it more tedious. The enemies have way more health, you have less health, and it's just more time consuming. It doesn't actually mean there's more strategy. It just takes you longer to kill enemies, and it's an exercise in frustration. That's what I'm expecting. We haven't been shown anything to suggest the combat's going to be interesting. They can talk about it and say, oh no, all these things will change as you get further into the game. Why didn't they show that then? They had an opportunity to impress. They banged on about, oh, it's not only going to be 15 minutes, it's going to be 20 minutes of gameplay now. Why didn't you spend that extra 5 minutes actually showing something later in the game? If it does get strategic, if it does actually get interesting. If you're not going to show it right now, I'm not expecting to get it. Posting on Twitter later about it, which some of the devs did, to say, oh no, it's going to be great. That's not enough for me. I want to actually see it. But for now, this game just looks bland. It looks mediocre. Not as comedic as initially shown, but I'm expecting this game to flop nonetheless. What we're seeing now is what I expected Dragon Age Dreadwolf, Dragon Age the Veilguard to look like before they ever showed us anything. This was kind of my expectation, which is not good. It's like a 5 out of 10. So the idea that just because it looks better than the 1 out of 10 reveal cinematic, that somehow makes this good, I don't agree. I think this might be the last game we ever get from Bioware. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you on the next one. Cheers. Bye.